Hello, welcome to the Savvy channel. You ever read a psychology book? Have you ever read a psychology book or one of those self-help books that's supposed to help you out? Well, I have. I read a lot of those kind of psychology books. I think that they're really interesting to read, even if I don't necessarily have the problems that the book is talking about. I just like reading through them because I think just knowing people is a pretty good skill, and I think it's really enjoyable to just sit down and read and just learn about particular types of people. But this one book that I've been reading is kind of irritating me just a little bit. I understand that it's based off of a theory, so I shouldn't take it too seriously, but in the book they specifically state this can work for any type of relationship, not necessarily romantic, but any kind of interpersonal relationship with another person. And I just don't think that that's true. I just don't think it's correct. It's a book called Attached by Amir, Levine, and Rachel Heller. They're two psychologists that did a bunch of research, got together, and then wrote this book. It's based off of the attachment styles. In the book, it says, hey, every adult person has an attachment style that they got when they were very young, when they were children. And this attachment style continues into their adulthood, and it affects how they interact with other people. And it was a pretty interesting book at the very, very beginning, because it was just kind of doing all of its setup, saying, oh, hey, well, here's the three attachment styles, which is the secure attachment style, anxious attachment style, and the avoidant attachment style, which is fine. Those seem like fairly good categories. I just don't feel like they either didn't explain it properly in this book, or they need more specific types of attachment styles, because it doesn't. Just me, myself, looking at it, I'm like, this isn't even how I have a attachment with other people. Like, this isn't even, none of these fit me, myself. You know, because obviously the secure is like, just like a regular person, is like, the secure is supposed to be like these, they're super comfortable with themselves, they're not super overly jealous, they're not controlling, they're just kind of like, well, roll with the punches kind of people, which that makes sense, I understand that. And then they've got the anxious type, which is, the way it's described in the book, I don't particularly like, because it's like the way that they describe anxious types is like, oh, well, you're really anxious, so you really latch on to somebody else. Okay, so if you're anxious, you latch on to another person, and then you become semi-crazy, because the description in the book is so awful, okay? Because they talk about how the anxious types are like, oh, they always want to know where you're at, they always want to know where you're going, they're super anxious, they want to make sure that you love them, and it's like it's too much. Like, I don't know if they're just going with the extreme on the anxious attachment style or what, but no, like they need to have like a subcategory that's not as insane as how they describe it. And the avoidant attachment style is just the avoidance attachment style is like, oh, this isn't the girl of my dreams, so I'm gonna break up with her, or oh, I don't want to deal with that, and oh, I don't want to deal with your emotions and how you feel, and like that kind of stuff with the avoidant. It's like they want to avoid the situation because they don't want to, because when they engage with somebody else and get closer to somebody else, that's when they start feeling really uncomfortable in the relationship. Whereas anxious people, if they're not being validated all the time, then they get super anxious. I just don't like the way that this book has it set, because it kind of talks about those three type styles being the end all be all. Like, you're one of the three, and well, if you're one of the three, then this is how you act, this is how you are. It's like, okay, no, that doesn't sound quite right, because I myself wouldn't necessarily say that, like, my attachment style, I'm not like super secure. Like, I get nervous. I get anxious about a relationship. I'm like, oh gosh, no, did I just do something wrong? That kind of stuff. Like, I'm not perfect, obviously. You know what I mean? Not, well, they kind of describe the secure attachment style as being perfect. Like, oh, they don't get all weird about this and weird about that. It's just too broad. It's too broad, and it's like, how many people are you actually meeting that have a completely secure attachment style, supposedly? Like, how many people are you meeting that's just, like, doesn't feel any kind of anxiety over a first date, or doesn't feel any kind of, and I know that's a kind of a little minute thing. It's probably not considering that, but I just wish that it would explain that in further detail. It also talks about how, well, you could have, like, it's a super low percent, but you could have both the anxious and the avoidant attachment style. Okay, well then tell me about the weird anxious and avoidant. Like, how do you be both anxious and avoidant in a relationship? Like, you know, further explain on it, and they don't. There is no chapter in here that further goes into detail about it. They just say it, that it's a real attachment style, like, oh, you could have both, and then never go into detail about what that really means. Because if you have both, is it like, okay, well, I could take some of the anxious stuff, some of the avoidant stuff? Well, then that makes it a little too vague, of like, well, now you're just nitpicking from each group what you do, which is what you should already be doing. You should already be looking inward towards yourself, I guess, and being like, oh, you know, like, that's kind of a problem that I've got, I need to work on that, and I need to work on this, and oh, I do this sometimes. You should already be doing that. If you're trying to, like, better yourself and all that, you should already be doing that. So if you should already be doing that, then why do you even need the attachment styles? Because they're not, if you could be both and just nitpick the which one that you are. As I said, I don't really, the way that they depict them is, like, not good. Like, I just don't like the way it is, because what if you are super anxious and you're in a relationship? Well, the way that they depict anxious attachment styles in this book is not, it is not all encompassing. Like, I'm sure that there's some people who are super anxious and then just like, oh, I need my partner to always be around me. Oh, I need them to tell me where they're at 24/7. Oh, I need them to do this. I need them to do that. I'm sure there's some people like that are always, like, verbally wanting to be validated. But what about the anxious people that don't verbalize that? What if they're too anxious to even verbalize how they're feeling? Because there's a lot of people out there like that, oh, well, I don't want to say this because it's going to make them uncomfortable, and I don't want to make them uncomfortable, but it's really bothering me, and, like, what am I supposed to do? You know? So, I don't really understand how they can say that it's like this, like, oh, this will work for any relationship, when it's so flawed. And like I said, I know it's a theory, but it just irritates me because they don't ever say, oh, this is just a theory, you know, like, this is just it's in the title of the book that it's attachment style theory, and that's, like, the only time that I've heard of it being a theory come up. It's the specifics of it are too vague. The attachment styles are too loose, like, specifically the anxious attachment style, because I can understand avoidant, like, you know, you constantly, there are people like that constantly just want to be away from the problem. They just don't want to deal with it. They'll worry about it another time. They just don't want to deal with it. But just because they don't want to deal with it doesn't mean that they aren't anxious. Then maybe they're avoiding it because it makes them anxious. So at what point is it solely avoidant and solely anxious? Because it just, and even then it doesn't really, the secure relationship type doesn't really make too much sense either, because it's like, okay, well, they, you know, insert example, they, you know, like, oh, well, you know, their partner doesn't text them, so they're fine. They're not going to sit there and worry about it. Well, Some people do. Some people that I would say are pretty secure people would be like, oh my god, my husband or wife hasn't texted me back, and that's not normal. Why aren't they texting me back? So does that fall into secure with just like an exception, like an outlier somewhere in here, or does that fall into anxious? Because now you're it's too vague. It's too vague, and I've been reading this book and it irritates me, you know. And like I said, there's no specific chapter that talks about the anxious and avoidant together as a type. It just talks about them separately, and then like I said, I guess you just cherry pick what it is that fits you, which defeats the entire purpose of even following this attachment theory to begin with. Because the attachment theory is a theory like this is supposed to be, hey, find what fits you and then follow that. It's not a matter of, well, you might be both, so just like follow both. Like, that doesn't make it, because the results are going to be completely different, because the avoidant is oh, you gotta go and have a conversation, you gotta go and stop being so uh uh stop being at work all the time. You need to go home and actually talk to your partner about how this bothers you, or just have a good sit down and discuss things that you don't feel comfortable really discussing, because it just makes you uncomfortable. Emotions or whatever, how you feel, whatever it is. It's like, that's going to be a completely different solution than the anxious person that's like, oh, well, reel it back a little bit. Let's not always be trying to get validation. You got to be able to get validation from yourself sometimes. You can't always rely on your partner to make you feel better, whatever. Well, then where do those collide? Having a conversation with your partner would probably fix most of the issues that you have, regardless of if you're following an attachment style theory or not. And if it doesn't, then, I don't know, figure something out with that partner, because if you can't talk to your partner and get your issues straight, that's already a problem. That's already a bad thing. If you want to go and read the book and kind of just see what it's going on, I feel like a lot of people probably won't. I just can't see a lot of people actually being like, yeah, I fall into that category and that's me. I feel like there's too much nuance with human beings that there's no way that the anxious type will perfectly fit somebody. I guess probably somebody out there probably fits it perfectly. But most of people probably won't fit specifically into a pretty little box that this book comes up with and tries to put you under. It just doesn't make any. It just irritates me, because you could use this for any relationship. You could use it for any relationship, and it works. It works 100%. There's too much nuance with people to be able to classify them into a box like that. There's not enough. It needs to be a bit more specific. Like, if you can come up with something like kind of general like that actually like straight up works, that's actually like, oh, hey, I can actually put myself into a specific label here, and that's what I'm going to work on. But I just don't know if that's even possible, for one, and I don't think that this theory is within that realm of possibility. I don't know how popular this theory is or anything. I just was reading this book, and the book seemed like it was a pretty popular book. I personally just can't get behind it. I just don't think it's specific enough. I think it's just trying to clump everybody into these like little squares. I don't even know why secure is on the list of attachment styles. I feel like it shouldn't be. I feel like if you're trying to find your attachment style, then your attachment style is not going to be that you're secure. I couldn't imagine, from their definition, a secure person being like, yeah, I'm going to go and look up what my attachment style is so that I can work on my relationships better. Well, you're already secure in your relationships. You already don't have the anxiety that other people do. You trust your partner, and that kind of a thing. And it also further goes on to talk more about I just don't think that it just doesn't work. It doesn't work as a theory, and they made a whole book about it, and I hear people talking about, oh, here's the attachment theory, here's all the attachment styles, like it's gonna do anything. It's like, okay, well, I know my attachment style, so cool. I mean, just do better for yourself in general. I don't think that you need some kind of attachment style of like, well, this is how I connect with people to help. Like, I just don't think that that's going to really help very much. You know what I mean? Like, there are some things that I could totally get behind. The love languages, those are fine. If that's, like, it's a good way to be like, oh, well, here's how I feel loved or whatever. This is what I like to do, and this is what I would prefer to have back to me. Cool. Go off. That isn't a terrible one. That's an okay one. The attachment style just isn't it. It's too vague. It doesn't get into enough details from this book. I'm only going off of this book, by the way. Maybe they've redone it and it just makes so much sense now, and everybody can. It helps everybody now. I don't know, but based off of this book, I have not felt any. I'm just confused the whole way through. I'm like, okay, well, I fit this one, but then I kind of also fit this one. So what do I follow? What do I go off of? Do I follow this style because like that has some things that I do, but then this one has some things that I do. I just don't think that the attachment style is going to be all encompassing like that, because everybody has different things. For example, money. There are some people out there that have a problem with money. So you could be an anxious type, right? But you've been taught that you don't borrow money from people. Well, that would fit under avoidant, right? Because you're like, no, I'm not dealing with any money giving. I'm not gonna take any money from you. I would feel like a terrible person if I borrowed money from you, because there are people out there that have like a weird money issue. So that would fit under avoidant. But you're an anxious person. It's just too broad. It's just it doesn't work. I feel like that theory should be debunked completely. I feel like if you had one conversation with another human being, you would realize that it doesn't work like that. But yeah, that's all I really wanted to talk about. Just this book that I was reading.